Pakistan's former Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto-Zardari, while speaking at a press conference at the UN headquarters in New York on Tuesday, made a rash attempt once again, in fact, viewers, to push an anti-India narrative as he claimed that Muslims were in fact being demonized in the country. However, this anti-India propaganda was effectively countered then and there by a foreign journalist who pointed out that he had personally witnessed India's Operation Sindoor briefing being headed by an Indian Muslim officer. That's correct. The journalist's remarks visibly left Bilawal with no counter whatsoever, and he simply nodded in response. Take a look.
Let me start with a statement you made today, saying that the recent terrorist attack in Kashmir is being used as a political tool to demonize Muslims in India. Sir, I have watched the briefings on both sides, and as far as I recall, there were Muslim Indian military officers who were conducting the briefing on the Indian side.
Well, as far as the operation is concerned, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held a series of high-level meetings in Paris on Tuesday. Now, the focus was boosting India's global trade ties and expanding partnerships in high-tech and innovation-driven sectors. Meanwhile, the World Trade Organization chief Ngozi Konjo-Iweala pressed for India to support the China-led proposal on investment facilitation for development as she met Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on the sidelines of the OECD Ministerial Council meeting in Paris. Here's what the WTO chief said.
He spoke about all these issues about reform, about the issues that India is interested in, like agriculture, and how for MC14, we need India as a leader. India is a leading country, and India is doing well. So India needs to open the way for other developing countries. For example, on investment facilitation for development, we want India to support, because so many developing countries, 90 out of the 126 who are members, would like to move with this.
Alarm over China's stronghold on critical minerals is only growing as global automakers have now joined their Indian and American counterparts to in fact complain that restrictions by China on exports of rare earth alloys, mixtures and even magnets could cause production delays and outages without a quick solution. German automakers became the latest to warn that China's export restrictions threaten to shut down production. Not only this, they might also rattle local economies following a similar complaint from an Indian EV maker only last week. Two Chinese nationals have been accused of smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen to the United States for research. As per Reuters, the pathogen held possibilities, in fact, viewers, of being used as an agricultural terrorism weapon. Now, this pathogen has been identified as the Fusarium gramineum. The U.S. Department of Justice said that it was classified in scientific literature as a potential agro-terrorism weapon. What's more, well, the fungus can cause head blight in crops and is also responsible for large-scale economic losses amounting to billions each year. Now, this bacteria's toxins also cause vomiting, liver damage and reproductive defects in humans as well as livestock. Over in Washington, President Donald Trump wants his big beautiful bill of tax breaks and spending cuts on his desk to be signed into law by the 4th of July. That's correct. He is pushing the slow-rolling Senate to make it happen sooner rather than later. To that end, viewers, in fact, Trump will meet with Senate Majority Leader John Thune at the White House early this week and has been, in fact, dialing senators for one-on-one chat. But it's still a long road ahead for the 1,000-page plus package. This as it's a potentially uphill 3-week sprint for senators preparing to put their own imprint on the massive Republican package that, in fact, cleared the House late last month by a single vote. And as Trump pushes on with his big bill blitz, Elon Musk has hammered the sprawling tax cuts and spending mega bill that Trump is trying to muscle through Congress as a disgusting abomination. That's correct. His comments come just days after Trump, in fact, gave him a celebratory Oval Office farewell that marked the end of his work for the administration where he spearheaded the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. The White House, meanwhile, defended Trump's huge tax cuts and spending after Musk's criticism.
Once Trump's go-to guru for cutting government bloat is now in open rebellion, and his reasons go far beyond just bad policy. They're personal, political, and petty, as some would argue. Elon Musk has called out Trump's new tax bill for fueling a crushingly unsustainable debt and accusing Congress of pork barrel spending at American taxpayers' expense. But here's where it gets interesting. Reports state that Musk's anger wasn't just about the numbers and economics. It was personal. Musk had reportedly lobbied hard behind the scenes, wanting tax credits for electric vehicles, a bigger role for Starlink in US aviation, and even trying to keep his job inside the White House. But the final straw? Trump abruptly withdrew the nomination of Musk's ally, Jared Isaacman, for NASA chief without warning, and reports quoting insiders say Musk saw this as a deliberate snub by Trump's inner circle. And then came the tweet storm. Well, Republicans right now are a little rattled. Trump's inner circle, meanwhile, blindsided. And the big question now is Musk just venting, or is this a power play that could splinter conservative politics? And as Indian viewers, we should be watching too, because when two of the world's most powerful figures fight over policy, space, and power, it affects everything from Tesla's supply chains in Asia to global tech and geopolitical influence.
Staying with the United States, where Donald Trump's Justice Department is examining pardons issued by former President Joe Biden in the final days of his presidency. Now, the move comes amid an investigation by the House Oversight Committee into the former president's alleged mental decline and also the use of auto pen. The White House has confirmed this on the 3rd of June. Justice Department's pardon attorney reportedly told staff on the 2nd of June that he had been directed to, in fact, investigate clemency and pardons, both of them granted by Biden to family members and the death row inmates. Now, this investigation will reportedly focus on whether Biden was even competent and others were taking advantage of him through the use of auto pen or other technological means. The Trump administration has rescinded guidance telling health providers who perform abortions in emergency cases that they're protected under federal law, even if bans exist in their states. Now, this directive was issued by the Biden administration to give legal assurances to physicians and other providers facing questions about what qualifies as an emergency under a state ban. But since then, viewers, courts have grappled with how state restrictions and federal directives on emergency health care mesh. The Supreme Court, in fact, last year dismissed a case surrounding Idaho's ban without ruling on the merits of the case. Meanwhile, dozens of protesters converged in the heart of the Latino community in Minneapolis on Tuesday. Now, this after a large force of federal and local authorities wearing tactical gear conducted what they called a law enforcement action. As you see on your TV screens right now, the video showing FBI agents carrying rifles and armored vehicles bearing the initials of the Homeland Security investigations quickly spread with rumors of a massive ICE immigration raid. In fact, Minneapolis Mayor, meanwhile, has said in a statement that his office was still gathering details on what had actually happened, but that the action was related to a search warrant for drugs and money laundering and denied any arrests were made. Across the border, a tragic mass shooting incident unfolded in Canada's Toronto, leaving one man dead and 5 others injured with non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. Emergency crews were dispatched around 8:30 p.m. local time on Tuesday to the area of Flemington and Zachary roads. Viewers, it's near the Rennie Avenue and Allen Road following multiple reports of gunfire. The shooting occurred in a densely populated residential area. It's not far from the Yorkdale Shopping Centre in North York. Meanwhile, Toronto police have confirmed the fatality and injuries in a post on social media platform X. Over in West Asia, the spokesman for the Israeli army said on Tuesday, in fact, that Israel forces fired warning shots near suspects who approached them near an aid distribution point in Gaza. Brigadier General Effie Defrin's remarks come as come as or after the Palestinian health officials and witnesses said 27 were killed as they headed towards the air hub, or the aid hub in this case. Refren told journalists in Tel Aviv that the incident is under investigation. The near-daily shootings have occurred after an Israeli and US-backed foundation established aid distribution points inside Israeli military zones, a system it says is designed to circumvent Hamas terrorists. Listen in.
השבוע נטען כי צה"ל ירה לעבר אזרחים במרחב חלוקת הסיוע. זהו דיווח שקרי לחלוטין ומהדהד תעמולה של ארגון הטרור חמאס. הרמטכ"ל תחקר את האירוע בעצמו עם המפקדים בשטח בכדי להגיע לאמת.
On to the other war now. Senior Ukrainian officials arrived in Washington on Tuesday to in fact secure deeper US backing as peace talks with Russia falter in Istanbul. It's not the first time, the second round of talks in fact. Meanwhile, Kiev accuses Moscow of deliberately stalling negotiations and continuing its military aggression despite ongoing diplomatic efforts. Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff, Andrei Yermak, met with US-Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg and accused Russia of playing for time and manipulating negotiations to in fact dodge sanctions and a delay in ceasefire. On the other side of the aisle, Russian Security Council Secretary Sergei Shoigu arrived in Pyongyang to meet with North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. Now, this is his second visit to Pyongyang in less than 3 months, very interestingly. The press service, meanwhile, of the Russian Security Council told TASS that the sides are expected to discuss implementation of certain provisions of the Russia-DPRK Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Meanwhile, viewers, the situation around Ukraine will also be up top in the agenda. Lee Jae-myung was sworn as South Korea's new liberal president on Wednesday, pledging to guide the nation out of the political upheaval triggered by a recent martial law crisis and to revitalize an economy grappling with sluggish growth and rising global protectionism. His election comes in the wake of former President Yoon Suk-yeol's ousting just 3 years into his presidential term following widespread backlash over a failed bid to impose military rule end of last year.